3 seconds. That's all it needs to accelerate from 0 to 100. No other land animal in the world is faster, and no other predator is as consistently built for speed as it is. But what's truly astonishing isn't how fast it runs, but how fragile it is while doing so. I am the Safari Guide. My name is Frank. And today it's all about the cheetah. And when I talk about the cheetah, I'm talking about speed. Because one number immediately comes up when it comes to the cheetah. And that's the number 100 kilometers per hour. You can practically see the animal in front of you getting ready. Its body tense like a coiled spring, then the first step, the second, and suddenly it's nothing but dust, speed, and a sprint that decides everything. But this speed of 100 kilometers per hour is only reached for very short moments, for just a few seconds. And exactly in those seconds, everything is decided. A cheetah usually hunts in the early morning or late afternoon, not at night like many other cats, and there are 2 reasons for that. First, its eyes are made for daylight. And second, during the day, that's when its biggest enemies and competitors are sleeping. Lions and hyenas. So during the day, he has a much better chance of a successful hunt. When a cheetah goes hunting, it looks for a raised vantage point, for example, a termite mound. From there, it looks out over the savanna. He basically scans the landscape very calmly and at the same time with full concentration. Somewhere in the distance, something is moving. A group of antelopes, maybe impalas, peacefully grazing. Now he becomes alert. His gaze lingers on the animals and he watches very closely. The whole group doesn't interest him, only a single animal. Specifically, the one that isn't paying attention. The one standing a little off to the side. Maybe it's grazing at the edge of the herd. Then he starts to sneak up. Very slowly. If the prey animal lifts its head, the cheetah freezes. He doesn't want to be seen. He uses every dip in the ground, every bush, even almost every blade of grass as cover. His goal is to get to about 50 meters or even closer to the animal. If he manages that, then he'll sprint off. Within 3 seconds, he reaches 100 kilometers per hour and covers up to 7 meters with each jump. Halfway through a sprint, all 4 paws have no contact with the ground. He's practically flying. Then he strikes with his paw, thus throwing his prey off balance. In the fall, he snaps at the throat and strangles the animal. In doing so, he clamps down on the windpipe and partially on the carotid arteries. The cheetah strangles until the animal dies. This can take several minutes. Now the critical phase begins. He lies next to his prey. He is panting, and he looks around. He is extremely nervous. And at the same time, his body is gasping for air because the sprint has raised his body temperature to over 40 degrees Celsius. And his heart is racing. He is completely out of breath. He has to cool down now. And right now, he is vulnerable. Because despite all his superiority in sprinting, he is almost defenseless against larger predators. He cannot fight, not against lions, leopards, hyenas, or wild dogs. And the predators, they know that. It is said that about 15% of all cheetah kills are stolen by other predators. He, the cheetah, now has to lie still for at least 20 to 30 minutes before he can even start eating. His body temperature has to drop, and his pulse has to return to normal. And then the cheetah eats, but hastily. He starts at the soft spots, at the flank, at the belly. On the inside of the thighs, yes, and he loves the heart and liver. Sometimes he drags the carcass under a tree. But actually he doesn't have any time. He eats whatever he can now, and as quickly as possible. Which animals are on a cheetah's menu? His favorite prey are small and medium-sized antelopes. Springbok and impala make up the majority of its diet. Large antelopes, zebras, or buffalo, those are not prey animals. A cheetah simply doesn't have the strength to overpower such an animal. Young animals might be possible, but even then you have to remember that young animals are vigorously defended by their herd, and that can become very dangerous for the cheetah. In addition to smaller antelopes, it also eats guinea fowl, bustards, and hares. And it also hunts porcupines. But it has to be very careful with them. The quills can cause life-threatening injuries. The cheetah only takes this risk in exceptional cases. For example, when it is really very hungry. Because if it is injured, it can no longer hunt. And if it can no longer hunt, it will starve. Coalitions of 2 or 3 males are a bit braver in this regard. They can also take down larger prey. But then they have to share the kill. The daily food requirement is about 1 to 4 kilograms of meat. A hungry cheetah can devour up to 12 kilograms in a single meal. That's really a lot in relation to its weight, because a cheetah weighs about 50 to 60 kilograms, so less than an average human. 12 kilograms of meat in one meal, that's truly remarkable. I've seen cheetahs hunting several times, but in all of these attacks they were unsuccessful. In the Kalahari Transfrontier Park. I've mentioned this park several times in earlier episodes. It's actually one of my favorite parks in southern Africa. So in the Kalahari Transfrontier Park, I witnessed something exciting there. A springbok mother is out and about with her offspring. The 2 of them are alone. That's rather unusual for springboks because normally they move in a herd. I pause for a moment and watch as the young one nurses from its mother's teat. And automatically I think of a cheetah because I saw one in that exact spot earlier in the morning. So I watch the 2 of them for a while and then drive on. On the way back, about an hour later, I suddenly spot the cheetah. He's sitting in the shade under a tree. However, he's not alone. He has prey in his mouth and he's eating. About 50 meters away, the springbok mother is standing there, this time alone, and staring toward the tree. Now I'm going to try to describe a cheetah as precisely as possible. If you want to look at photos, I've uploaded some on my website safariguide.online. A cheetah looks similar to a greyhound. He has a long body, a narrow waist, very long legs, and compared to his body, a very small, streamlined head. Compared to a lion, he almost looks delicate. His fur is golden yellow, somewhat pale, and covered with around 2,000 black spots. Because of these spots, you can easily distinguish a cheetah from a leopard. The cheetah has individual, clearly defined spots. The leopard has rosettes. These are dark rings that are usually a bit lighter on the inside than the rest of the fur. The most striking feature of a cheetah is its tear stripes. These are 2 black lines that run from the inner corner of the eye along the nose down to the corners of the mouth. And they make the cheetah unmistakable. It is assumed that they serve as protection against glare. That also makes sense to me. After all, the cheetah hunts in bright daylight. In the savanna, the light becomes very intense. And these dark lines could reduce the glare from the sun. A cheetah's tail is about 70 centimeters long. Towards the tip, it is patterned with alternating dark and light rings. The tip itself is white. And for a cheetah, the tail is a very important tool. During a sprint, it serves as a kind of rudder. It stabilizes the body during lightning-fast changes of direction. The white tip of the tail is for the young cheetahs, a follow-me signal. When the mother walks through the tall grass, she raises her tail. The little ones follow the bright spot and, in this way, don't lose sight of their mother. Now let's take a look at the claws. Lions, leopards, and wildcats can fully retract their claws. The cheetah can't do that. Its claws are always slightly extended. As a result, they are blunt and usually worn down. The claws work like spikes on a running shoe. They grip the ground, provide stability in curves, and enable those precise changes of direction during the hunt. The heart of a cheetah is astonishing. I've already mentioned what it accomplishes during the hunt. But even at rest, the heart beats 100 to 120 times per minute. After a sprint, it quickly rises to over 200 beats. and the breathing rate increases from 30 up to 160 breaths per minute. That's almost 3 breaths per second. Can a cheetah roar like a lion? No. A cheetah belongs to the so-called purring cats, just like our house cats. Their most well-known sound is a high-pitched chirp. Cheetah mothers use it to call their young. If a cheetah feels threatened, it hisses or growls. If it is relaxed, it purrs, loud and deep. It sounds like this. The cheetah is an animal of open landscapes. To hunt, it needs space, clear lines of sight, and short grass. And in such areas, I always keep an eye out for this big cat. I find it interesting that the cheetah doesn't need to drink water every day. From the blood of its prey, it gets enough moisture to go several days without drinking. But if there is water nearby, then it drinks daily. The social system of cheetahs is unique among African big cats. The females live alone and the males form brotherhoods. Adult females are almost exclusively solitary, except when they have young. Their territories are huge and overlap with those of other females, but they avoid each other. The males, on the other hand, band together. Most often they are brothers from the same litter who stay together even after separating from their mother. These coalitions usually consist of 2 or 3 animals. There is no dominance among them, no hierarchy. They hunt and eat together, rest together, and patrol together. Of course, this has the advantage that they can hunt larger prey. I've already mentioned that. Individual males without a territory are called drifters or wanderers. They lead a hard life. They are often on the move at night, and they cover long distances simply to avoid conflicts. This leads drifters to experience weight loss and illness. The life expectancy of such animals is significantly shorter than that of males who live in coalitions with their brothers. Speaking of life expectancy, it is about 10 to 12 years. Cheetahs communicate with scents. They leave scent marks at special spots, for example on termite mounds, rocks, or certain trees. They do this with urine, feces, or by rubbing their bodies against these spots. Namibian farmers like to call these trees newspaper trees. And that description fits quite well. Several cheetahs visit the same tree, sniff at the markings left by others, and leave their own. It's a kind of messaging system. Who was here and when? Actually, we don't really know what other messages are being left behind. And the scents also play a role when it comes to reproduction. A female cheetah is only receptive to mating for a few days each year. But during this time, she becomes active. She roams restlessly through her territory, rolls in the grass, and the smell of her urine changes. She now marks noticeably more often than usual. This is how she attracts the males. For the males, it's a message in the sand. Hello, someone here is receptive. If mating occurs, it only lasts a few seconds. But it is repeated over and over again dozens of times a day for 2 or 3 days. Only through this repeated mating is ovulation triggered in the female. Without this stimulation, she cannot become pregnant. After the days of mating, the male moves on, and the female gives birth to the young 3 months later. On average, there are 3 to 5 offspring. Sometimes she has only 1. But litters with 9 young have also been observed. And the tiny babies are blind and helpless. They weigh only between 150 and 350 grams. The mother eats the afterbirth. This way she minimizes odors to avoid attracting predators. And in addition, during the first weeks, she regularly changes the hiding place. The young cheetahs have a long silvery gray fur on their backs during the first 3 months. This serves as camouflage, because with it they closely resemble another animal, deceptively similar, namely the honey badger. The honey badger there will of course be a dedicated episode about it as well, is quite feared in the animal kingdom. It is small but unpredictable and extremely aggressive. If necessary, it will even attack lions. And if a predator now sees a young cheetah with this silvery coat, it hesitates. It might actually be a honey badger after all, so it's better not to take any chances. By the way, this type of camouflage is called mimicry. That is, an animal imitates the appearance of another, more dangerous or unpalatable animal. This occurs quite often in the animal kingdom. So what happens next with the young? They are nursed for up to 6 months. But as early as 6 weeks old, they start eating meat that their mother brings them. At around 18 months, they become independent. By then, their mother has taught them everything they need to survive. So, what does the mother do then? She simply takes off and leaves her offspring behind from one day to the next. Sometimes the siblings stay together for several more months. Then the females leave the group. The brothers usually stay together for life. The mortality rate among the young animals is very high. Around 2/3 do not reach adulthood. The reasons for this are varied. Young cheetahs are susceptible to diseases, and many are also killed. Most of these killings are caused by lions, leopards, and hyenas. However, they do not eat them. Cats generally do not eat other cats. Only in rare exceptional situations, perhaps in cases of extreme food scarcity. But lions, leopards, and hyenas act for a very simple reason. They eliminate competition. And there is another factor that decisively influences the life of a cheetah. Humans. No other wild animal in Africa has such a long, close, and ambivalent history with humans as the cheetah. Even the ancient Egyptians kept cheetahs as pets. Indian Maharajas and Islamic rulers also used them for hunting. Akbar the Great, a Grand Mogul in India who is said to have, in the 16th century, owned over 1,000 cheetahs. Today, its future hangs by a thread. Its conservation status varies between endangered and critically endangered. Worldwide, around 6,700 wild cheetahs were counted in 2019, most of them in Namibia and Botswana. However, the numbers are declining. Their habitat is shrinking, settlements and roads cut through the open landscapes that a cheetah needs to survive. 90% of cheetahs in Namibia live outside of national parks. This often leads to conflicts with livestock farmers. In addition, there is also the wildlife trade. Of course, this is illegal, but it still exists. In the Arab world, cheetahs are considered a status symbol. Live cubs fetch enormous prices on the black market. It is estimated that 4 cubs are smuggled out of Africa every month. Many die during transport. There have even been smugglers caught trying to take live cheetahs out of the country in backpacks. I'll just leave it at that. When I encounter a cheetah on safari, I know it's a truly special moment. I watch as it slowly climbs up a termite mound, how it stands still, lifts its head, squints its eyes slightly, and gazes into the distance. The animal seems so calm, so composed, and yet very alert at the same time. This cheetah lives in a world that is giving it less and less space. And yet, it is still here every morning, every evening, up on its hill. It looks out over the savanna, reads the landscape, and waits. And then, at some point, it moves, quietly with focus. And that is exactly how I always picture it. And that is exactly how I have often seen and photographed it. Thank you for joining me on Safari today. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the Safari Guide, please check out my Patreon page. With your financial support, you help me continue this podcast independently and ad-free. And in doing so, you make it possible for new episodes to feature deeper research and even more stories from the world of safaris. Because that's what this is all about, not just seeing animals but understanding them. You can find the link in the show notes. Thank you very much. Until the next episode, Frank, your safari guide.